Can I reach it?
Here you go.
We're getting Christopher's microphone on. Let me just tell you what happened. A few years ago, I read an article in City Weekly, and it talked about Ida Smith, who I talked to on the phone, and Christopher. And so I made a comment on the show. Christopher then went and he made a YouTube video and said, I would like to be on, you're right, you're going to be right here, my friend.
Right here.
I would like to be on this man's show. And so we made contact, and I'm going to have you move over. I'm sorry, we don't stage anything here. There we are. When you and I are talking, we'll be on that one. And when you're just talking, you can look at that one, and I'll look at this one, and we'll be all right. All right?
I'm with you.
All right. Excellent. Excellent. Thank you for being here. Really appreciate it. So, listen, we've had a couple quick conversations over the phone, and you certainly are very sure of yourself. You told me that you know more about the Bible than any man alive, more about the Book of Mormon, and Joseph Smith. I think you said you knew more about him. Powerful words. Do our audience a favor, Christopher, and go back and just kind of tell them your story prior to coming out of Mormonism. When you were faithful, active as a kid, your family. Give them some history so that they know what we're dealing with. I've done that with myself. Take your time.
It's as simple. I was just a normal Mormon boy. I grew up in the church. My family was pretty well known back in the 70s. I had a grandfather that ran for Salt Lake City mayor, an uncle who was a professional basketball player, and so we don't have time really to go in specifics, but it was almost what people would call a miraculous way that I became a security officer. It was very, very interesting, and I'll write that in my autobiography if anyone's really interested.
So you were devoted through your teen years, participated, you have the leadership callings, all the things.
Everything you can name.
Everything
It's just a typical Mormon kid.
Okay.
Who, like I said, if you could make me different in any way, or put a difference on me, it was that I was very dedicated to my religion.
I see.
But it was that, of course, that led me to become a security officer for the LDS Church.
Okay.
I was involved in church security in the 80s.
Okay.
I was sitting at my security desk in the genealogy library when I heard the bomb go off that Mark Hoffman blew up that was then the Deseret Gym, near the Deseret Gym. They'd almost blew him up.
Huh.
And it was through that experience, as we began, as the security department began to get involved with the FBI and the federal authorities trying to figure out, and the Salt Lake authorities trying to figure out what was going on, that I began to do my own little investigation, because I could see that many of the leaders of the church were not telling the truth about what went on, what was going on.
Okay.
But here I would have defended any leader of the church with all of my heart.
You were devout. Porter Rockwell of the church.
Devout. That's what I wanted to pattern my life after. Of course, I was fed the history that the LDS Church gives you.
Right.
And so it was basically, I came to the conclusion that there were things that weren't right. I, too, was at that time what you would call a Christian who believed in Christ, that he was a certain way.
Okay.
And I couldn't imagine that any of the leaders of the LDS Church had any semblance of Christ as I got to know them behind the scenes.
I see.
Of course, in public, they present a different persona than they do behind the scenes. But anyway, the simple with a person's common sense and with a person's honesty.
Okay.
But that basically led me to lose my faith in everything. It was one night as I cross-trained. I was in the temple at the time, and I met in a room that was just for the 12 apostles to meet in. 12 high-back chairs. Each of them had their portrait hung on this room.
I've heard that story. I didn't know. Yeah, I've heard that story.
But
the big portraits of themselves.
Yes. I mean, and there were the scriptures right there, and at that
point.
Would
you say they were egocentric?
You know, that's what I felt at the time. Of course, I felt at the time. But in their minds, with giving them the due respect, they feel that they are God's chosen leaders. Okay. None of them have seen.
Do you feel they deserve respect?
I feel that all human beings do.
Okay.
All human beings do.
Right. So tell us what happens. You've had the crushing blow, 87. You don't believe anymore. So then take us what happened. Take us into the next phase of Christopher's life.
Basically, the same thing happened to me that happened to Joseph Smith.
Okay.
I got on my knees, distraught, crying, not knowing what to think, and I just cried and prayed right there in that room. And sure enough, there appeared a person, a human being.
A human being.
That I recognized at the time as Joseph Smith.
Okay.
Off to the side, it was off to my left a little bit, there was a personage that appeared to be like my grandpa. Mm-hmm. I was close to my grandfather, Joseph Nephi Nemelk. Mm-hmm. And he just seemed to stand there. Mm. You know, and I think it was more, I know what it was for now, but at the time it calmed me. Because I didn't know what was going on, because the personage that was there, it was a lot different than the Mormons' view of Joseph Smith. Mm. Okay, the Mormons, of course, I've said this before, and in all respect to you, Mormons have deified Joseph Smith. You've demonized him. Mm. I'm right there to show you what really happened. Oh, okay. Okay?
And you can do this because you've seen him.
Well, the fact is, something had to occur. Okay. Okay, something had to happen because the LDS people do not have the truth. They do not have any semblance of the true history, or of what really happened back then, who Joseph Smith really was, what he really did. Neither do the critics.
So how do you have it?
Talking to Joseph Smith.
So in a conversation, he appeared to you in the apostles' room. You were weeping and crying. You're crying out to God. Joseph, grandfather, Joe Nephi, they appear. And from that, and did you have further engagements with Joseph?
Well, what happened was this. Automatically, as an LDS person, you're thinking you're getting deceived. Okay. You're thinking that Lucifer is appearing to you in an angel of light.
Did you do the handshake?
It was too overwhelming at that time.
No, wait, you...
No, I didn't. No, let me explain what happened. Okay. You're asking me what happened?
I know, but I just said, did you do it? Because
no.
I would have first done the handshake.
I didn't have to. Of course, he, being an advanced human being, perceived my thoughts. Okay. He reached out and touched my right temple. And at that moment, my entire world changed. I was, all I can describe it as, the easiest way that I can describe it is a very advanced technology that rearranged certain dendrites in my brain that allowed me to remember things from past lives. And that's why I remembered, wait a minute here. I knew everything. At that moment, the whole world transformed into a realistic observance of what it really is, what's really going on. Okay. And I wasn't afraid anymore. This image of my grandfather disappeared at that time. Okay. Of course, that was used to calm my heart, and at that point, then I knew what was going on.
I see. Okay,
and with that, the sealed portion was mentioned, that I was to translate the sealed portion of the Book of Mormon.
Okay, let me interrupt you one second. Okay. Just so our audience knows, the Book of Mormon came gold plates, and Joseph described a portion that had a band or bands over it that were not, he wasn't able to get into, and they call it the sealed portion. And so what Christopher is saying is that this was brought to him. Was it still bound?
The plates were there at that time. I mean, they did appear at that point. At that point, the bands were around the sealed part, the 2/3, and those bands were broke.
The sealed portion was mentioned, that I was to translate the sealed portion of the Book of Mormon.
Okay, let me interrupt you one second. Okay. Just so our audience knows, the Book of Mormon came gold plates, and Joseph described a portion that had a band or bands over it that were not, he wasn't able to get into, and they call it the sealed portion. And so what Christopher is saying is that this was brought to him. Was it still bound?
The plates were there at that time. I mean, they did appear at that point. At that point, the bands were around the sealed part, the 2/3, and those bands were broke. But I knew at that point what the Book of Mormon was all about, what the sealed portion was about. Let me try to explain it very briefly so that you know, because you don't know what it is.
Oh, no,
any LDS...
I have absolutely no idea, Chris.
There you go. Well, I believe that you've probably read the Book of Mormon, and a Mormon should understand.
But I knew at that point what the Book of Mormon was all about, what the sealed portion was about. Let me try to explain it very briefly so that you know, because you don't know what it is.
Oh, no,
any
I don't.
Any LDS...
I have absolutely no idea, Chris,
there
what
you
it's
go.
about.
Well, I believe that you've probably read the Book of Mormon, and a Mormon should understand what the sealed portion is.
I don't understand the sealed portion at all.
I'm
Tell
sure you don't.
Know.
Let me help you.
All right.
First of all, we're not going to have the time to really get into this one. We're not going to have the time to get into the true purpose for the Book of Mormon. Okay. But this is something that I'm going to, in brevity, help your listeners to understand, and it's something that you never probably put together.
No.
The Book of Mormon. Now, I'm not going to try to debate.
I'm not debating. I'm just getting information.
Wait. I'm just trying to help.
Okay.
I don't want to assume that I'm going to convince you that the Book of Mormon is anything but an invention from Joseph Smith.
Okay.
I think that's what you've been telling your viewers, and that's fine. Let's go with that.
All right.
But
well,
why
what do you know? I don't care. Don't care about what
okay,
I.
I'm
going
to tell you the truth.
All right, tell us the truth.
All right, I'm going to tell you. But why was it? Why did he do what he did?
Okay.
Why did Joseph Smith do what he did?
What was his motive?
His motive.
Okay.
Here was the motive. It's very simple. Okay, I'm going to just give it to you how it is. When he was a teenage boy, his mind was susceptible to learn more so than an adult who has all the filters placed from their prejudice that they gained from their time being a youth and in church. Joseph Smith didn't have any of those.
Okay.
Joseph Smith was visited by an advanced human being whom the world would recognize as Christ. That's what the world would recognize him as. Okay. He sat down with Joseph Smith as a teenager and told Joseph Smith, this is what's up. Pretty much telling him that there's other humans out there, there's other societies, other worlds out there. And of course, he gave the counsel to that 14-and-a-half-year-old kid that you probably don't want to talk about these things to anybody at this time. We have something for you to do. Okay? And with that, a few years later, you know the story, the Moroni story and all these things, but you also know something that the critics know. That Joseph Smith's own testimony of what happened during that quote-unquote first vision changed.
Yes, it did.
Okay? There were like 3 different versions that you can verify. Well, there was a heck of a lot more than that.
Right.
And it wasn't until near about 1838 that he finally penned out what he wanted people to think.
And what was the motive for the changing?
Now I'll tell you the motive.
Okay.
The whole purpose for advanced human beings to intercede at that time was to bring some semblance of equality to the races of the world. Okay, the Bible controlled the world. White race controlled the Bible. That's just how it was. Okay. The people, the so-called Christians, were slave owners. Okay. They weren't very good people as we would see them now. Okay. But that's all they knew. They knew it from the Bible. They had the Bible stories. Okay. Joseph Smith's mission was to basically become the Moses of the latter days and do exactly follow the same pattern in real life as what happened in the Old Testament with the Jews. Okay. You're a Bible student. I think that's what you are.
Well, I don't know.
You see?
I read it.
So this is what happened, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but what I say, when I say it, especially when it's being video recorded, it is true. Moses tells the people, hey, you guys can be endowed from on high and know all there is to know about God. All you got to do, let's go up and talk to him. Okay. And the people said, no, we don't want that. We want you to do that. Joseph says, all righty then, and he was supposed to give him a religion. He gave him a religion. This is all based, I could bring up the scripture in the Book of Mormon that talks about all these things. Joseph Smith did exactly what Moses did. Okay. And what did Moses do? Did Moses enter the promised land? No. Did the people that followed him enter the promised land? No. Were they condemned by God for what they did? Yes. Did they have the higher law? No. They had a bunch of ordinances. They had all this lower law because all they want to do is listen to Moses.
Okay, bring yourself into the picture.
All right, I'm going to.
We only have an hour.
All right, I know we've got to do this. There's a lot to it.
Bring it in.
Okay, so the Book of Mormon was put together to teach the people of the world that the darker skinned races are just as equal in God's eyes as the white skinned races. Thus the story was presented, the story that is based partially on fact.
Okay, can I ask a question?
Yes.
Thank you. Why then does the Book of Mormon use skin color and skin tone in a derogatory manner towards those who are disobedient if it was pro-races?
Because the Bible does the same thing. The Book of Mormon was to convince Bible believers. And when you understand the story of the Book of Mormon, it leads up, it tells a story similar to the Bible until it gets to one very important part that Joseph hoped the people would get. And that was when Christ came down and taught the same things that he taught to the Jews. And that's why Joseph Smith took Matthew 5, 6, and 7, interpolated into the Book of Mormon as 3 Nephi 11, or 12, 13, and 14. Word for word. If you read the story correctly, it's all about these wars and people treating the black and the whites different, the Lamanites and the Nephites. It's a story. Okay? But it's based on this idea that perhaps we can get people to think Maybe the darker skinned races are from just, or have a heritage that belongs to a God-chosen group of people, just like the whites do. And that's what it says.
Okay. So you're a proponent of equality among the races, I'm gathering.
Yes, but let's get to the sealed portion.
Okay.
Okay.
Back to the sealed portion.
The sealed portion is the fail-safe for the Book of Mormon. A fail-safe is this. A fail-safe, folks, if you don't know, most people don't, you put a fail-safe in a piece of machinery. You have an intended purpose for a piece of machinery, and you put something in there in case the purpose isn't met. The fail-safe kicks in and will hopefully and usually proceed to make the machinery do what it's supposed to do or shut it down.
Okay, I gotta hold on now. So the fail-safe we get, the sealed portion I'm getting, you're coming into that. Do you believe that the Book of Mormon was from a real people?
It was loosely based on historical evidence. Yes.
Okay. And do you believe the Bible to be the Word of God?
No.
Your mouth said no.
No.
Okay. All right, no. Okay.
It's not.
Interesting.
I don't believe the Book of Mormon.
Very interesting.
Now, I don't believe the Book of Mormon be the Word of God either. And that's what I'm trying to get to.
Yeah, right. It was a history that he used to bring the vehicle forward, to get his ideas forward.
Let's put it how it is.
Okay. Put it how it is.
Okay. Joseph Smith.
Onward, Christian soldiers.
Now the truth is, see, this is where you know from my story and from the work that I do, and especially there's a lot of people in that audience that are staunch LDS people. They were going to church just like anybody else. They believed in that until they read the sealed portion. Now let me explain the fail-safe again. So the intent of the Book of Mormon was to lead people to Christ, to those words that he taught. That's it.
All right.
That, it culminated in that. And when you know the story correctly, I'm not going to get into that. The fail-safe, in case the people rejected the Book of Mormon for what it was intended to do, was the sealed portion.
Okay.
Okay, Joseph.
So tell us how the sealed portion came about.
So the sealed portion was that fail-safe.
How did it come about? He showed it to you. You saw the bands were off. What did you translate? I've read two things. I've read you translated it. I heard Joseph dictated it.
No, Joseph didn't dictate.
No dictating?
You have to get it through a Urim and Thummim. And where it came from, a Urim and Thummim is simply a cell phone. It's like this. If this was in Russian, okay, I took your cell phone.
I left my Urim and Thummim in the car. I wanted to see
There
it.
you go. Well, I mean, you have to think of it this way. We have technology now in these days that we didn't have thousands of years ago.
That's true.
So how do you know in thousands and thousands of years they're going to have something very, very sophisticated?
But that logic takes us back. You would think the Urim and Thummim would be more elementary and we would advance in our knowledge, but the Urim and Thummim is an amazing thing.
Now, wait a minute. They're two rocks.
Yeah, that's amazing that you can look in those and translate with them.
That's not how it works.
Okay, tell us how it works.
Just like a cell phone would.
So you put them on the ears or what?
No. There are human beings in other solar systems, okay? Other more advanced than we are. Just like we have the capability to use a cell phone to call perhaps China. Okay. With a Urim and Thummim, it's been on the earth for thousands of years. It's for a true messenger.
Okay.
It's disguised as rocks because back in the day, you're not going to have this advanced technology because people go, what the heck is that?
I'm assuming they made of glass.
No, they're made of a quartz.
Quartz.
Okay, that usually is, if I gave you that Urim and Thummim and you were to put it under,
one?
Of course I have the Urim and Thummim, not with me.
Do you have?
I have the Urim and Thummim, the exact Urim and Thummim that was
Joseph
used, that Joseph used.
And that was in the Old Testament?
No.
Because that book wasn't true?
No.
Okay.
No,
Just trying to keep track of this.
Okay,
All right, keep
right.
going.
So all we're trying...
I'm sorry. I have to tell the audience. Now, we have, I don't know how many, maybe a couple dozen, maybe more people here who follow Christopher.
Oh, wait just a minute. They don't follow me anywhere. Let's get that right. There's no following, no church, no cult. They simply received information and changed, their whole world changed because of the information.
Well, they're here.
They're here because of the
And I'll be
challenge that
willing
was
to bet
made.
they give you support.
No, I don't need their support.
I bet they do give you support, though.
They do support.
Okay, so
they do, yeah.
they follow his teaching, whether it's him or not. I just want to point out to the audience that this following that is learned within the LDS to follow what the inspiration is of the new leader. Joseph was one. Christopher is another. I'm not saying anything yet on his story. I'm just pointing out that when you remove yourself from something that gives you an anchor, you'll follow anything.
Now, wait just a minute.
Anything.
See, Sean, you're making...